And I'm also here with my colleague, Glenn Smith, by the way, who is also part of the Wiley team. So, and that's Glenn. So what are we going to learn today? What are we going to do today? This is the agenda that I have prepared. I think more or less we're going to be together for 45 minutes, a little bit more if we have questions. I'm always happy to hear from you. I know that 45 minutes is actually a long time. We're all busy nowadays, right? So I do want to make sure that this session is helpful to you. If you have any questions, if you would like me to cover something that perhaps is not on the agenda, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself when I make pauses for questions, right? I do want to make this as interactive as possible, considering that we're not face-to-face, we're online, but it's all we have, right? So hopefully this session is helpful for you. We're going to start with how to access. And probably that's some information that you're going to hear from other people, right? But it's a good reminder. How do I access these resources that my library is granting me access, right? Then we're going to take a look at the content that Wiley has in general and the content from Wiley that you specifically have access to. I do want to make sure, again, that this session is helpful, right? So maybe at some point, some of you will be wondering, well, how can journals help me with my goals, with my academic purposes, right? So I do want to highlight some benefits of this scientific content that you have access to. One of the main things that we're going to see together is how to cite, how to share, and how to download content. This is probably like the most basic functionalities, the most basic things that any user is going to want to do. And then we're going to take a step up and run some searches together. I want to show you some tricks around advanced searching. And I'm going to tell you about Boolean operators. And Boolean operators may sound a little bit intimidating, but they're fascinating. And once you learn how to use them, you're going to be able to use them in other platforms. There are other platforms and databases that support Boolean operators. Another recommendation that I'll give you today is how to set up content alerts. I love talking about alerts because I really feel they could save us time and they can help us create nice habits to read more scientific content. So we're going to talk about those too. And then before we wrap up, for those of you who may be considering to pursue a more academic career, or maybe you're researching, you would like to publish an article one day, I'm gonna show you how and where, because it's actually quite easy to submit the manuscript itself, and there are a couple of things that you should know beforehand. So hopefully I'm meeting some of your expectations, if not all of them, with this agenda. But again, if at some point you come up with something, I'm going too fast, something is not clear, just feel free to use the chat or say something while when I do a pause for questions. So for those of you who are wondering who Wiley is, well, maybe you don't know much about Wiley. That's totally fine, right? So I work for Wiley. I'm an associate director in customer training. This is what I do. Present and tell you about resources that Wiley publishes. Wiley actually has been around for a long time, 200 years. And it's funny because it started like a small family business, and still 200 years after, we still have members of the Wiley family in the company. We're well known for the work that we do with scientific societies. And just to give you more information about the quality of our content, we've published the work of authors that were awarded with the Nobel Prize. We have over 400 authors that were actually awarded with the Nobel Prize. So hopefully, that gives you an idea of who we are. We're normally among the top 5 within the academic publishers around the world. All right, so how do you access these resources that we're going to be talking about today? These steps are going to help you for Wiley, but also other publishers, other vendors that are going to be talking to you these days. They're going to give you similar processes, right? Similar steps. So the step 1 is to go to your library website, which you can see here on the screen. And then you have the ability to actually go run different searches, right? You can either go to the main search bar, the one search bar, and type Wiley or type other keywords that may lead you to Wiley's journals. You could also go to the databases search bar and type Wiley too, or go to collections. And then in collections, you can select databases arranged alphabetically or journals arranged alphabetically for journals. So different ways to locate that content. And keep in mind that at some point, you may be prompted to enter your library credentials to access the full text and the full content. All right, so what type of content can you find in Wiley? Actually, in the Wiley Online Library, pardon me. Within the Wiley Online Library, we have a universe of content that is made of over 1,600 journals. And those 1,600 journals actually represent over 8 million articles. That's a lot of scientific content, right? There are also over 2,000 online books, 20,000 online books, pardon me, over 200 multi-volume references. That's pretty much online encyclopedias. And then we also have other databases and current protocols. So that's the whole scope or universe of the content that Wiley has. And we really publish content about very different disciplines. As you can see, we have journals and online books about arts, nursing, psychology, environmental sciences, a little bit of everything. And specifically for you, you have access to a number of resources from Wiley, different journal collections, some online encyclopedia, over 20 different online encyclopedias, and also over 3,000 different online books as well. The content that you have access to actually touches different topics, but is mostly around social sciences, humanities, economics, life sciences, psychology, law. If you don't see your discipline on the screen, it doesn't mean that you don't have content for that. I'm just highlighting the broader themes and the broader disciplines. But during the live demo, we're going to run a search together, and I'm actually going to show you some specific disciplines and some specific journals or content that you have access to. And just to let you know, in case you start wondering, well, how do I know what I have access to or not? Well, as you can see here, you have this padlock, right? The padlock icon. As long as you have that padlock icon open, the full access, that means that you have access to the full text of that article or that journal or that online encyclopedia or that online book. All right, so some of you perhaps not that familiar with journals or scientific content may start wondering, well, how can this exactly help me? Well, good question. So the first thing that you want to do with this content, with scientific content, is just to look up content that is high quality. And I want to highlight the high quality element because I know that nowadays we have an excess of information, right? We could go to the internet and we're going to find so much content about almost anything. But how much of that content is really reliable? Is content that I can trust? Do I know who the author is? What the source is? Has this been probably vetted? Is there any type of quality control? Those are many questions, right? That I wonder myself when I just go into the internet, go to a Google search, right? Here, journals, they follow a process called peer review. So peer review is pretty much the quality control that is going to guarantee that what you're reading is reliable and is something that you can trust. Journals are also an excellent way to stay up to date with your discipline. So for instance, if I'm an expert in training or if I'm a student of sociology, I may want to know what's happening in my field, on my discipline, what the challenges are, if there are any new developments or events happening. Maybe I'm getting ready to present in a conference or just preparing a project to present at class. And I want to be able to talk about things that may be happening, controversial in my field. Journals are an excellent way to stay updated. No, it's kind of like checking the news, right? But for scientific content. Also, for those of you who may be thinking in doing your own research or publishing your own article, reading journals may help you discover trends and understanding the target audience that you want to reach to through your research and your article, right? So being a good reader may help you become a better writer and better address any hot topics that these publications may be publishing content about. In general, all these journals and scientific content are helpful to help you write your own research and manuscripts, but also any type of scientific communication, even a presentation for a class, a lecture, etc. One of the main things that we're going to see together is how to cite content. It's very important to give others credit, right? If I'm creating a project and I'm reading some articles and they're really critical, they're helping me, I need to give credit to the authors, right? So we're going to see how to cite. It's very easy, it's very straightforward. And there are actually different ways in which you can cite or download the citation. And of course, this is a tool that is going to help you advance your career as a student, as a researcher, or an expert in general. So hopefully you find something you like in this screen and something that is resonating with you to make the session helpful. But again, if you have any particular question or something that you would like to see related to the journals or accessing the scientific content, let me know and I'll try to make some time to address that. All right, so let's do a live demo together. And for that, I'm just gonna go ahead and go into the Wiley Online Library. Again, remember that you should go first to the library page of your university, and then you will end up arriving to this very same page. But it's important to follow the regular process just for authentication, particularly if you're working from home, if you're a student at home, if you're traveling, right? You shouldn't have any issues accessing this content. Doesn't matter where you are, but it's important to follow those steps of the remote authentication through your library, just to make sure that you don't have any issues accessing the content. So when I land here, the first thing that I see is the search bar, right? So it's very straightforward. I could just go ahead and start typing any keyword. So in my case, I love languages. I'm actually originally from Spain, so I speak English and Spanish and other languages that it's been too long for me to remember. But imagine that I want to see which type of journals I have access here related to languages or translations, right? I could type language. And as you can see, I see some suggestions. I haven't even finished typing whatever I wanted to finish, right? And I already see some journals, some books. So I'm going to pick this journal just because I already had it in mind and I want to show you a few things around it. But you could actually run your search and get all the results, which we're going to do too, but a little bit later. So when I pick this journal, every time you go to a journal page, you're always going to see the same elements. And hopefully this makes it easier for you to navigate because everything will look the same. Everything will look similar. What do I see here? Well, this journal is called Language Learning. It's a journal of research in language studies. And here I see some information about the editors and the editorial team. Right after, we see the impact factor. If you're not familiar with the impact factor, it's a very popular indicator, right? That is very commonly used to compare journals. So I know it's not the only metric or the only indicator, but it's a very popular one. And sometimes when authors are trying to pick a journal in which they would like to publish their research, many times they look at the impact factor. So here I can see the impact factor, and I actually also see the journal citations reports ranking. So this is a ranking for journals that is going to arrange the journals according to relevancy or importance for different disciplines. So I can see that this particular journal that I picked is in position number 6 among over 180 other journals. So good reputation. And then here below, I see other data about the journal too. On the top right corner, I see the latest issue. So actually this journal just published, this same month, just published an issue. Let's go a little bit below. And here, for those of you who are thinking about, maybe I would like to publish my article with Wiley. I would like to try to publish a manuscript with Wiley. This is very easy. As you can see on the right-hand menu, I see a button indicating submit an article. So that's you just have to click, and that's how you go. Very important to keep in mind something before you do that. When you go to the contribute section, you see the author guidelines. So the author guidelines are pretty much like the recipe that you have to follow to write your manuscript to guarantee a successful submission. It's not a guarantee actually, but to increase your chances of getting published with Wiley. Every journal, not just in Wiley, but in many, many publishers, right? Every journal has normally their author guidelines. So those are their recommendations. Again, I just say recipe, but the guidelines that each journal is going to give authors in terms of the format, the different sections that the manuscript should contain, and things like that. So it's really important to read those guidelines and work your manuscript accordingly before submitting the article to increase your chances of getting published. And another relevant section for future authors would be the overview. So when I go to the overview, it's just going to give me information about the journal. So you may think, oh, it's obvious, Ale, this is evident. Yes, but the reason I mention this is because when I speak with my colleagues in editorial, they tell me that many, many times they have to reject a manuscript, not because the manuscripts are, there's nothing wrong with the science or the content of the manuscript, is because the manuscript is being sent to the wrong journal. And when we say wrong journal, it's a journal that, its aims and scope are not really matching the ones of the manuscript. So this could be a mistake or something that we overcome by coming to this section and carefully reading the aims and scope. And before sending that manuscript, making sure that the aims and scope are aligned with our manuscript. So hopefully this makes sense. Again, if you have any particular questions around this process, which I know there's a lot to unpack when it comes down to submitting your manuscript and preparing the manuscript, but hopefully this makes sense. And if you have any questions, please use the chat and I'll be happy to address this. So something else that I want to mention, when you find a journal that you like, imagine that I am studying linguistics and I'm studying translation or humanities in general, and I run into the journal and I love it. And I want to be better at reading scientific content. And maybe I want to spend a couple of hours every month just reading some new scientific articles to understand what's going on in my discipline, right? A great way to do this would be through content alerts. So when here on the right-hand menu, you can see content alerts. And if you click there, you're gonna be able to set up an alert for you to get a notification every time this journal publishes some new content, a new issue, a new special article, a letter from the editor, anything. So that's an excellent way of staying up to date, create a new habit, right? If that's what you want. And also make the platform work for you. I don't have to remember, oh, I have to go to the platform, run a search, see if there's something new. The platform is gonna let me know, right? So that's very nice. So if there's one recommendation that I give you today, would be to get into the platform, find a journal that you like and is relevant to your interests, and put an alert and see how that works for you. I think that would take you probably just a few minutes, and I think it could be really rewarding. All right, so let's try to do a search together. I'm just gonna go back to the homepage. And here, for instance, if I'm interested in in content about, I'm just actually going to check the chat once again. And I do want to encourage the audience, if you have any particular theme or topic that you would like me to use for the demonstration, I want to give attendees a few seconds to type something away, and I'll be happy to use it for my demonstration. So I'm going to give a few seconds and see if someone has a topic or a theme. I used language before. I could try something else within social sciences or humanities or law. So let's see if we have a volunteer. And if not, I'll go ahead with my other example. Okay, well, oh, good, thank you. So I do see a suggestion. Thank you so much, Sam, for your suggestion. I have a suggestion here. I have two suggestions, awesome. So I'm gonna read this aloud for everyone. Environment and mental health. Mental health, I'm gonna make a note here. I also see vertical farming, very interesting, right? And these examples are great. Thank you so much, Sam and Taiwo. These examples are great because they are terms with multiple words. So that's going to allow me to use Boolean operators. It's going to be nice for the demonstrations. Thank you so much again for these suggestions. And I'm going to go ahead and type these words and run a search together to see how we find the content. So actually, I'm just going to go ahead and use environment. I know the suggestion was environment and mental health. I'm just going to start simple, and then we're going to build up together. So I just type environment, and I'm going to run my search. Okay. So as soon as you run your search, you're going to get the results page. Hopefully, you're going to notice this, right? As you start working with different platforms from different publishers like Wiley or other publishers that you have access to, right? You're going to see that the results page start to look alike. So in the results page, you're always going to have some filters on this side, and the filters sometimes are going to be similar. So the good thing is once you start feeling comfortable, let's say on the Wiley Online Library, you're going to start comfortable to running searches in other publisher sites. So that knowledge is going to serve you well. So here I have a lot of results, right? I have too many, 3 million. I need a lifetime to be able to go through all the results, right? So this is the importance of the advanced search. Here, I could go to refine search. And if I want to clarify or narrow down my results, like, okay, I'm interested in the environment, but I am actually interested on the impact of the environment in my mental health. Then I could type mental health here. And I can run the search again and see how this changes. So I've moved from 3 million to 250,000. We see the difference, right? I'm still getting a lot of results, which is exciting and maybe a little bit intimidating because it's a lot of reading, right? But it's good, I'm making progress. Something else that you may want to do when you refine search is changing the criteria. So by default, when you type a word, it's looking anywhere. What does it mean? It means that as long as that word is anywhere in the article or book chapter, no, like the title or the abstract or any part of the article, it's a good result. But you know, it may not necessarily be relevant for me. So I may want to change this a little bit and make it title. For instance, keywords, title. I'm just going to play with this a little bit and see how it changes, right? So as soon as you start tweaking that criteria, the list is going to go down, but it's going to be more relevant to you. If you want to apply some filters, you actually have access to some journals, some books, some reference works, which remember they're kind of online encyclopedias. So depending on your needs, you may want to apply a filter or keep it open. Another filter here is the publication date. So this is funny to see, right? In case you're wondering, well, I don't really know if I should read this scientific content that often. Please note that only this past week, there were 16 different articles or books published about this topic. So if you're not reading on a regular basis, you may be missing out on some valuable knowledge, right? And keep in mind that you can just use different filters here for the dates. I could decide to just get the results for the last 2 years or a custom range. Further down, you have open access. So I'm not going to get into the details of open access, which is a world itself, but anything that is open access, you have full access to it. So regardless of your subscriptions, you can always access open access content, right? Anywhere, anytime. Another interesting filter is the subject. So for instance, we're talking about mental health and we're talking about the environment. And I could add a filter if I want to see the impact of all that in business and management, or perhaps architecture or arts, right? So this is a way of exploring a topic or a theme through a different angle. And further down, I have two other filters. One of them is journals. So I can see that the International Journal of Mental Health Nursing has published a lot about this topic, right? So that's kind of a nice way of learning about new journals and identifying new journals. And the same for authors. I could filter these results by authors, but it's also a nice way of learning about some experts. And perhaps, you know, I see that Brenda Happel has published a lot about this topic. Well, maybe this is an author that I should explore more. So if you want to just access one of these articles, let's see. I'm just going to filter by journals. And I'm going to pick the first one. So if I just want to go ahead and read the article, as soon as you click the title, you're going to get the article. Again, they're all going to look the same. So you have the title, and right below the title, you have the author name. The author name is always going to appear there on top. I also see things like citations. So this is interesting because it's telling me how many people or who is citing this content, right? That's a way of understanding the impact in other researchers and experts that are leveraging this content to build on their own research. So I could go ahead and read the article here, or I could click here on PDF, and it's actually going to take me to the PDF format. So it's either the HTML, the kind of website version, or the PDF. So the PDF has a different format. It's something that I could download if I want. I could print, right? Very easy to manage. And what else can I do with this article? Well, we were saying at the beginning that one of the things that you may want to do is citing, right? So if I want to do a presentation at class or a project for my, one of my courses, I may want to cite this if I'm using this content, right? So you could go to export citation. And this is where you're going to be able to see how to cite this. This is exactly the way you should cite this resource. It's very easy. You could just copy and paste, and that's the way. I think this style is the APA 6th edition. There are different styles and different ways in which you can cite. And you also have the ability to download citation. So there are some software and some apps out there that help authors manage all their citations and all their the references. They're called reference managers, so reference manager software. And you have different formats here. And you can download the citation too. All right, I want to show you two more things here on this page. So imagine that you're doing some research for a project and you're just kind of trying to gather different articles that you like and seem interesting, but you just want to put them aside. No, you don't have the time to read at the moment. You could just add them to favorites. So this is pretty much like a bookmark, right? It's just a built-in way in the platform to do that. So I could just add to my favorites and go back to those later. And probably something that some of you may want to do is share. If you ever publish with Wiley, or if you have already published with Wiley, by all means, share your content, be proud of it. It's very good to boost that visibility. You can share via email, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit, WeChat, different platforms. And you can also share a link and put it on a website. So very important to collaborate or promote your work. And I want to show you something interesting because we've talked about citations, right? This article, for instance, has been cited 8 times. But I want to tell you about another tool, which is called Almetric. So Almetric is going to measure the impact of some content in other ways. Other ways beyond citations, which are a bit more traditional. Almetric is going to leverage platforms like Mendeley or Twitter or Facebook and scan the number of times that this article has been shared or read and put together some information. So I'm just going to go ahead and click here. And I think this tool kind of completes the big picture, no, of the impact. So I know this was cited a few times, but I could actually see that this was also, there was a tweet, pardon me, somebody tweeted on Twitter. And we also have some Mendeley readers, right? And I can even see if they're part of a master's degree or PhD students. So this is interesting. And I just wanted to compare because I'm on purpose. I'm just going to get a very popular article. So bear with me. I'm just going to go again to learning. This is the journal that we were using before. And every time you go to a journal page, you're going to be able to see something like this, most cited. So I'm actually going to pick one of the most cited articles in this particular journal. And just to compare, this was cited over 400 times, which is amazing, right? Also considering that this was only published in 2014. I know it's been a few years, but it's a good number of citations, honestly. And here, when we go to the information, let's take a look at the Almetric Score. And this is going to be very rich. So as you can see, we see more activity in Mendeley, in Twitter. And when you go to the Twitter tab, you can actually see the tweets and what people are saying about this particular research. So imagine if this is your work, how rewarding could be to come here and read what people are saying about your own work, or a colleague or someone from your institution, right? So this is a really powerful tool. Sometimes you see patents too, or activity in different platforms or in blogs, news, etc. Okay, so I do want to go back to the advanced search and make sure that we run some other searches together. So if you want to go straight into advanced search, you could click here, advanced search, right below the search bar. And I want to practice some Boolean operators with you. So for instance, we were talking about environment and mental health, right? When you have, I wonder if some of you already know this, when you have more than one word, I should, not too many words, but if I have 2 or 3 and they're normally like a common phrase or a term, I should try to put them, when possible, between quotation marks. And this is a type of Boolean operator too. So what's gonna do is just make sure that in my results, these 2 words, mental health, appear together. If I don't put the quotation marks, I'm gonna see mental health, but some of the results I bet that are gonna show these 2 words but they're not going to be next to each other. So I may have the word mental in page 1 and health in page 14, and that's not necessarily talking about what I was expecting, right? So if you want to test the before and after with quotation marks and without, it's kind of nice to see the difference in the results. But I wouldn't recommend to put too many words because that's going to lead to 0 results, right? So 2 or 3 are probably fine, but more than that, it's kind of tricky. So I could put here environment. I could put here exercise. And I could actually add more. And again, remember that you can play with the different criteria to run your search in different ways. So here, imagine that I want to open up my search a little bit by using some Boolean operators, right? So imagine that I'm interested in learning more about mental health and the impact of the environment in mental health, right? And I also want to see if exercising could play a role or if therapy could play a role here. If I am ambivalent about some words, like I don't mind if I find results related that where the word exercise is appearing, or I don't mind if the word therapy is appearing, either one could be fine. I could use the Boolean operator or. So that's going to expand and open up your search results, right? If you want to be more restrictive and enforce that the platform is showing you both words, then I would do and. So it's going to show me when they're appearing together, not next to each other, but within the same result, right? And another Boolean operator would be not. So not is going to remove that word. It's going to show me results where mental health appears, environment appears, exercise, but not the word therapy. You may want to be careful with that one too, because it may remove some valuable results. So it's a matter of finding that balance. But this is really interesting. So if you want to know more about Boolean operators, you have some valuable information here on the side. So I would recommend you to give it a try, play a little bit, test it, because it's really interesting. And I also have actually some more information on my slides. I just want to use some visual clues here. And I'll be happy to share my slides with you if you want to learn more about them. But these are basically the main Boolean operators that we have on the platform. And just to show you some visual kind of representation or examples, right? When I'm using and, I'm really interested in how, you know, if I put history and photography, that intersection, know how they're overlapping, right? It's going to show me results right in that area. If I'm using or, I'm grabbing a larger area, right? Because I'm giving myself more options here. So in this case, you know, wine-related example, if I'm interested in viticulture, but also grape growing, because I feel they're both similar and related, I'm just going to use both terms, and I'm going to use the Boolean operator or. And I could do that with many more if I want, right? So it's a nice way to use synonyms to find more results that are relevant to your topic or the concept that you're working on. And not is going to remove a part of that, right? So if I'm interested in results related to communication, but I don't want any marketing for any reason, right? I could do communication, not marketing, and it's going to exclude that part. So really interesting, right? I do want to make a pause and check the chat and see if we have any questions. Okay, I see more examples here. Right, so I'm going to try to, let's see. We have a little bit of time, so I want to run some examples that have been suggested just to see what we have. So let me go back to the platform. And for instance, we had vertical farming, right? Again, this is something that I'm not an expert in the topic, so I guess I would like to, if I had more time, do some more research about similar concepts or terms that may mean the same, just to expand my search. But I'm just going to go ahead and run this search and see what we got. And indeed, we have some results. We find chapters of books. We have chapters. We have articles of journals, pardon me. And we even have some results that are part of an encyclopedia. So really nice to see that. And as you can see, sometimes the highlighted words appear in the title and sometimes they don't. That means that they are somewhere within the article, right? Or within the chapter. Another suggestion, thank you, Surya. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Another suggestion is organic farming. So for instance, if I want to do organic farming, I can run my search here. I don't even have to go to the homepage. I can just stay there, right? And run my search. And we do see a lot of results here, almost 5,000. Really, books, just to show you very quickly an example, books work in a very similar way. So if I'm interested in reading this book of the history of reading this chapter, pardon me, of the history of organic farming, I can just click there. And it's telling me that I'm in chapter 1. This chapter is titled History of Organic Farming and Certification, and is part of this book called Organic Farming, the Ecological System. So many times you have a little summary and then you have a PDF here. So if I click the PDF, it's gonna give me access. Sorry, it's gonna give me access to the whole chapter or the, it's not, I need to fix the authentication, sorry about that. But it's typically gonna give me access to either the entire chapter or the entire book. So it's very easy to choose. It just pops up and it allows you to choose. But you can also cite if you want. You can also share. Books are very similar to the journals too. I want to check the chat because I think this is interesting. There is another question here on the chat, which is saying, and maybe this is a question for Wallace too, because this question, yeah, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I can answer to Sam. I guess, you know, library subscribe to more than 400 databases from around the world. So if you simply put the search term in one search, I think you will get a very big amount of research result. So it depends. It really depends on the subject or the topic you need to decide whether you use one search or whether you use a separate database. Yeah. Hope I can answer your question, Sam.
Thank you, Wallace.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so, and then, you know, just so that we address everything, there was another suggestion for animal testing. So again, this is a great animal testing. This is a great example of, again, I would use quotation marks. And, you know, I just want to give you another, let's see what we have, over 6,000. What if we just say animal test? Just bear with me. Sorry, my internet, I think, is playing tricks on me. So, okay. Yeah. Yeah, animal testing seems to be fine. So anyway, you just want to kind of like try different ways, no? And again, be mindful of any synonyms or similar concepts that may lead you to valuable, valid results for you. Play a little bit with that, no? And perhaps think a little bit about your keywords. I know the person that suggested animal testing was also suggesting pros and cons, right? So as soon as you start incorporating more keywords, you may want to go to the advanced search. And when you do animal testing, here, for instance, right, so instead of saying just pros and cons, pro and advantage means the same, right? So I would try to play with Boolean operators in this way to generate more results in case I'm missing something, no? So I encourage you, now that this is relatively fresh in our minds, I encourage you to give this a try, right? To find the Wiley online library through the page of your library, following the instructions that we gave, run a search, find something you like, set up a content alert and see how it works for you, right? And hopefully you start leveraging and using these resources for your courses, for your classes, or any projects in a more regular way. So I want to be respectful of your time. I want to check if we have any final questions. Yes, thank you. So actually my colleague Glenn has an excellent point. Thank you, Glenn, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it, actually.
Yeah, sure. So just as you noted earlier, sometimes users may encounter access issue because, there's several journals that are unsubscribed. There's online books that you don't enjoy access to. So you may have library user and they encounter the situation where they find something, they've done a search and they think it looks interesting. But then when they try to access it, they bump into the locked, the closed lock. They can't access it. So there's a couple ways that you can get around. You can gain access, and perhaps if you're just thinking, oh, I just want to look at this article one time, or I want access to this content one time, what you can do is you can reach out to the library staff and ask them to set up a 24-hour access to you. The library, through its subscription to Wiley journals, enjoys the use of 50 what we call article select tokens. So basically this gives you the opportunity to set up a 24-hour access to any unsubscribed content. If it's a journal article, backfile article, book chapter, something like this. So if you think, oh, I just like to take a look at it, and then you can arrange through your librarian. But of course, if you find that there's journal or there's a book and you find repeatedly you want to gain access to the same content under the same title, in that situation, then we would suggest that you reach out either to a faculty member or reach out to somebody at the library and explore the opportunity to perhaps subscribe to it so that you can gain perpetual access, and then you don't have to keep on requesting individual select tokens to use for it. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Glenn. That was really great. Thank you. Oh, and thank you also for some very nice feedback that I'm seeing on the chat. Thank you, Surya, for your positive feedback. And again, I want to be mindful of the time. I know that you have a whole schedule with many, many sessions to attend. So I am happy to address any final questions. Otherwise, I can let you go. Maybe you want to grab a coffee or a tea before your next session. So before we wrap up, I do want to share my email address with you. So this is my email address. If you have any questions about anything that we've seen together today, you're trying a search and you're not finding what you want, or you're having issues with the Boolean operators, or any questions about the session that we've done, feel free to send me an email. And then, of course, if you have questions about access or anything, Wallace as your main librarian is there to help, and of course, Glenn and I, we're always happy to help as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. Any more questions? I got a question to Ali. Do Wiley provide any, say, user manual or online resources to the user for, say, for their learning by themselves to use the Wiley online library? Yeah.
Yes, great question. Thank you. So we actually have a training hub. So hopefully by now, everything makes sense, right? And you're ready to apply the tricks and the tips that we've just learned. But maybe in a few months, right? It's been a while. If you don't quite remember how to set up a content alert or how to do some of the things we've done, don't worry, because we do have a training hub. So when you're on the main page, if you go under resources, under resources, under researchers, right here, the third item, find training and resources. This is a training hub that contains a user guide, many short videos giving you more information about remote access or content alerts or advanced searching or an alert guide, which is really, really cool, right? So you can always come here. I'm just gonna paste the URL for you in the chat if you want. And keep in mind that there's more information about author workshops or upcoming training events, or how to publish with us. So really rich in different resources.